Hello, everyone. I am Ziz.
Ooh, we haven't started yet. I think maybe we have. Go ahead. Ziz, kick us off.
Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to 4340s on Friday, where we talk about performance. I am so fortunate to have Katie Eades joining me. So, Katie, tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Ziz. I am your witty and wise strategic partner for all things personal and professional development. And I'm excited to join Ziz every Friday to talk about his 4.340s and back on Wednesdays to share wit and wisdom with Ziz.
So we're going to get right into it. No fluff. So I was thinking today about a particular quote that caught my attention. It's from Tracy Ellis Ross. I am learning every day to allow the space between where I am and where I want to be to inspire me and not terrify me. And not terrify me.
Space between. So my brain immediately went to Dave Matthews' song, Space Between, right? And I'm singing a song as I'm playing with this idea of having fun in that space.
I like that. I like that. What it sparks for me is like where I am now and where I want to be, but just being in that space and being present with it, which I think is a challenge for us all. And the latter part of what Tracy says in her quote about terrifying me, because a lot of us operate from fear because we have these people in our lives who talk about fear all the time. What you don't have, what you can't get, people don't like you, this, that, and the other. And when you think about us, just the fact the two of us together, former athletes, the fact that you happen to be a woman with long hair, I'm a guy with really short hair and, a really cool tan that happens to be permanent. That's how I like to refer to myself sometimes. I like to be a little goofy, everyone, just a little.
That's how we get along so well.
Yes. And you don't take yourself so seriously. It's like, oh.
I think that's where people struggle to stay present. We talk so much about the importance of presence and how to get present. Yeah. Like, it's supposed to be fun. And I think if we connected a little bit more to, hey, the things that are not here right now are not as fun as what's here, that we wouldn't look at being present as something that we are forcing ourselves to do, but more so of just in like, this is where I want to be.
And so I'll think back to my playing days when I played football and played other sports, but especially football, when I got really tense and I'm like, oh, I got to catch this pass. I think it's going to come to me, and I drop it because I'm so tense. I'm not present. I'm like, don't drop the ball. Don't drop the ball. That's what's going through my head because I got ahead of myself instead of letting it come to me and be with what it is and what's actually happening. That's here's the beauty about playing on a team sport, though, because there are other individuals on that team that can make up for a mistake or a mishap. But when you play an individual sport like you, Katie, what do? You
level up your inner game so that you're able to coach yourself. And I think that's a big part of really how I even got into coaching, was I was constantly coaching myself. I'm good at it now. I wasn't good at coaching myself in my younger years, but it really is, it's much more of an internal game, and staying present and seeing yourself hit the shot and having it go beautifully versus telling yourself you're going to hit the shot and hope for the best, which was sometimes how I showed up on the tennis court.
So with that being said, like, beautiful example. So if you are in business or you're a teacher or an educator or anyone like that, instead of thinking about like what the hurdle or the challenge is, think about the desired outcome, focus on that instead of what the challenge is or what the hurdle is or what the limiting belief could be. And I try to use that in my coaching as well when I work with individuals, especially young people, but also with adults, also with executives. It's so interesting because sometimes because they've worked with individuals who might be at their level or depending on where they are in their level, if they're working with someone who's a direct report and they're like, oh, I already know how they're going to be. No, you don't. you know their patterns, but you don't know exactly how they're going to be. And I find that sometimes
I want to say yes and to that, because I think when someone says that, yes, you do know how they're going to be because you know how you're going to be, because you're telling me right now that this is how you're going to be.
Interesting. I like that.
Read your quote again. Your inspiring quote for the day is, what was your quote one more time?
So the quote is from Tracy Ellis Ross. It says, I am learning every day to allow the space between where I am and where I want to be to inspire me and not terrify me.
So that's the inspiration, right? Imagine how terrified both parties are going into that conversation, knowing that there's nothing inspiring here that's going on. We're just going to slug through this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell us more about some of the things that when it comes to inspiration, like what are some of the things that you've been that's been first and foremost on your mind?
Well, we talked a little bit earlier today about consciousness. And so what I find is most inspiring for my clients and myself is, to quote Caddyshack, total consciousness. But seriously, being able, we say self-awareness in the professional development game, but what we're really talking about is seeing what you cannot see. And no matter how peak performance that you're at, there's a blind spot. And it's really cool for me to help people get inspired by themselves by being able to see something new. And particularly when you're already out of the reactive mind and you're into the creative mind and moving towards the integral mind, which is the 5% of leaders that exist. When you're getting towards that, you're starting to still see things that you didn't see before. And it allows so much expansiveness. It allows the moment that you're in to be fun. And now you're inspired because every moment that you're being is inspiring fun and joy, instead of, oh shoot, let me try to manipulate things and make it better.
That's interesting, because I think we talked about this a couple of days ago, and it came from Simon Sinek. There are only two ways, he says, to motivate someone. It's either to inspire or to manipulate. And I put it out because I wanted to know if people agreed with that or not, if it's just two ways or are there other ways. What are your thoughts?
I think there's lots of ways to motivate outside of that. You can motivate someone to prove someone wrong. We talked about that earlier. But when we look at companies and schools, because at the end of the day, they're both doing the same thing. They are both organizations and systems that are feeding off of each other. We see a lot of manipulation and not so much inspiration. It's rare to have that inspiring teacher or to have that inspiring leader. And when you do, that usually is coming from the top and it affects the entire building, and there's huge shifts. And particularly with kids, I mean, we're always trying to manipulate them to do whatever it is that we want to do, versus inspiring them. And it's one of those like fine lines, like, is it inspiring for a kid to get a sticker at the end of a class if they're well behaved? Perhaps, sure. But inspiring a love of learning, I think, versus a love of manipulating behavior, not a love of manipulating, but instead of focusing on that, changes behavior as well.
I think you hit on something, the love of learning. I mean, that really falls into Dr. Carol Dweck, who's a notable psychologist at Stanford, who wrote the book Growth Mindset. And here's one of her quotes: picture your brain forming new connections as you meet the new challenge and learn. So that's, we get into neuroplasticity, and everyone, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I did play one when I stayed at a Holiday Inn, if anyone remembers that commercial. I know maybe only me, I'm laughing at it, but at any point, I love Carol Dweck's work because of growth mindset. And she talks about growth mindset, fixed mindset, pretty easy to understand. There's a lot of things in between those two. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, is our brains, our minds can still grow if we believe that.
Mm.
So anyway, what are your thoughts? I know you're a rabid reader of all things, especially when it comes to leadership and growth mindset and performance.
Yeah. I think part of growth mindset that we miss is that um, the way your water flows is the way your water wants to go. I say that all the time, right? You've heard me say that.
Say it
So
one more time. Say it
the
one more
way
time.
the water flows is the way the water wants to go.
Yeah.
And so growing the mindset around how do we make this water flow more forcefully if that's what we need more in our life, or how do we make this water flow more easily if that's what we need in our life? Looking at growth mindset is not something where I have to do something different. I have to change or I need a new behavior, right? This is the manipulation of, I think, that sometimes can come with growth mindset versus, okay, my water flows in this direction. My example is my notes are everywhere. There's sticky notes, there's this size pad, like no, none of my papers are the same size, right? And so that's my water and that's my flow, but I need it to flow more organized. So great, I'm going to get out my tape and I'm going to tape in my notes into a notebook and I'm going to have tabs and I'm going to label them and all of that. I call it my brain. That's the way it flows. And so that's where I'm going. Instead of trying to build a new habit of, okay, I'm going to have this habit where I put all my notes together at the end of the day, or I'm going to add this habit. It's really looking at what are the habits I already love and how do I maximize it? And that's what I love about you, Ziz, is you're the maximizer. I can bring you this long story of what do I do? And you're just be like, boom, there it is.
Well, it's funny, like what you just said is basically how you best operate in a certain situation.
Yeah, but the growth there, so it's not a fixed mindset of I have to operate this way. The growth is I know that I need to operate in a more organized way. I know I need to operate in an XYZ way. So for my clients, it's a paper file, and that way the paper's this big or it's this big, it fits in there and it's dated. Like there's things that I have to expand upon from me, but I'm expanding upon what I already have versus looking at what are the other things that work for other people. Like they're not the expert of me. I'm the expert of me. You're the expert of you.
Right.
So bringing in an expert of someone who's writing about their own experience isn't necessarily going to work.
Absolutely. So it comes down to knowing yourself, and where coach comes in is where you have blind spots. So that's the beauty of when, just to use a football analogy, having played football and playing receiver, yeah, the coach is like watching film and he's like, yeah, you know what? I notice when you do and run this particular route, you're doing this. And that's the beauty of having a coach, because they can see things that we may not see. Or they also say, hey, if you try this, this may help you run this particular route better. Coaching works the same way in the work that we do, with businesses and or in the school system. What are some of the other, not necessarily limitations, what are some of the other things that you want to say about growth mindset or anything else?
I would love to pick up what you were talking about there on like the running down the field and the coach, a coach can come in and say, hey, have you thought about this? But I think where our work really expands is that we come in and we say, where on this field feels the fastest for you, right? So it's not maybe you need to try XYZ, but it's where is your sphere of genius on this field. And there could be a lot of scientific reasons why the right side of the field is where you score more of your touchdowns, or there's perhaps it's the sun and the dew, perhaps it's whatever you're stronger on that push off for the leg, whatever it is. And then it's looking at how to, great, like now that we find this information inside of you, not only where do you feel your fastest, where do you feel your most strongest, where do you feel the most comfortable, but now we know how to maximize your potential. And so, okay, let's try these different things, but let's try it in your zone of genius first.
Yeah. Positioning.
Yeah. So like I guess where I go sometimes it sounds fixed mindset. Oh, well, you would just want to stay where your water is. Isn't that fixed? It's not, in the sense of we're also designed to do things that we're pulled to. We're designed to do things that light us up. Our brain rewards us for those things for a reason. And so if we can expand the growth mindset of not so much, yes, sometimes you step out outside your comfort zone. Yes, you do things that are different, that are unfamiliar. But then you take a look at the water around you and you start to look at how does it flow for me and what looks like growth for me around this versus what looks like what other things people do or what their suggestions are. I think that's where we become so much more powerful for people. So we allow them to grow their mind and then push when they're still stuck in a place that they can't see.
Makes sense to me. Any other things around inspiration and or growth mindset?
Well, I pulled a card for us because a lot of my inspiration is really, intuition is a leadership competency. You don't sit in the CEO seat without intuition and knowing how to use it for yourself. And so pulled a card for today, and I feel like that really speaks to everything that you brought, which I didn't know what we were going to talk about, which is the best work is not what is most difficult for you. It is what you do best.
And who said that?
Jean-Paul Sartre. I can't speak now.
So read it one more time, please.
The best work is not what is most difficult for you. It is what you do best. And I think sometimes we think about like the biggest challenge that we have is like, that was the best work we ever did. That was the most thrilling, but it's really focusing on what is it that you do best.
It's interesting because I think a lot of times, like just in general life, like not about it, your work life or your personal life, just in general life, acknowledging ourselves for what it is that we do well. But then also when we receive that acknowledgement from others, especially if we're in a position of like service or a position of just being with someone, listening to them, I think it's important.
Yeah. Well, I think about this from all of life as well. Like we don't blur in professional development, the lines between personal and professional, right? All of it is the same. It's one system. Yeah. So, right, wherever's being pulled is going to impact the other systems. So to think that you're showing up and you're just getting professional development, which is all we ever offer teachers. Here's how you learn how to teach math. Here's how you give this instruction. To think that the other systems aren't going to pull and impact is silly. And so when you look at this, of what the best work is not what is most difficult for you, things that are difficult for you in your entire life, like that's not your best work. We want you to do what you do best. And that applies to everything. And knowing, what are those areas? And when we think of teaching kids, like we focus on what they don't do well. We have these deficits. We never hear about, hey guys, so English scores are in the 80th percentile. We're going to shoot for 90 because this is what we're strong at, right? Nope, that's not what we're going to talk about. We're not even going to teach English. We might throw the book out. We're just going to focus on this area over here that we're not very good at.
Yeah, I get that and understand that as well. It's education is interesting. It's an interesting space. It's an interesting system. Clearly, lots of different thoughts are being presented by lots of different people. Always. Is there anything in particular, you being a former teacher, that you want to say about it? I know I have some thoughts on it, but I'm gonna defer to you.
So I look at it as you would look at any company that has, because you have leadership. You have leadership beyond your principal. You have a district office. Like you have all these other leaders that are involved in making all these decisions. And those leaders are living in silos. The federal government is a silo. Your state government is a silo. Your local community government is your other silo. And that's the one silo that really matters the most. But by the time they get any power to make decisions, it's been funneled through other siloed organizations. It probably wouldn't make a Fortune 500 company list if you ran a business model that way. So there's a lot of challenges that come along with how we have the current system set up. And I know struggle is part of what we were going to talk about today. And I think the biggest struggle there is vision. What is the vision? Is the vision test scores? Because when you get into your corporate job, the vision is not test scores. Like the vision is innovative thinking. The vision is we need creative minds. We don't need reactive minds. Like the vision is different. So we're missing a vision that is cohesive. I think because I was a history teacher, I think of Kennedy, where he had this vision that we were going to compete in science and space and this race. And we saw this an investment in those areas, whether you agree with that vision or not. My point is there was a vision.
Right. Right. Yeah. I like Simon Sinek. He says CEOs, and actually, if you think about a CEO being a principal in a school building, they hold the vision for all those individuals within that building, just like a CEO at a company.
And they hold the vision of all those people in the silo at the state legislature's office. And they hold the vision of the parents and the board. There's so many visions they're holding. And that's where you wouldn't run a company that way.
Yeah. Definitely challenging.
Yeah. What's interesting also about struggles in corporate, there's also a struggle of how do we develop our employees? 25% of employees are going to be considered underperforming. And what do we do? Well, we see strengths-based coaching entering corporate. So we know that there's something to this idea of not beating someone over the head for what they struggle with, but for being able to lift them up with what they're great at, knowing that as those things rise, so will the other things. But we still mostly are seeing in corporate that we're going to find out, well, these are your deficits and you need to fix these or you're not going to have a job.
Well, I think like anything, there's cycles, and I think we're in a really large cycle right now. The Great Resignation is definitely sending a signal to all companies.
Yeah, and then the signal now that employees are sending back is, ooh, did I make the right choice? Oh, the grass, it still needs different sunlight or different tending. Yes.
Well, that's the flux of it all. That's the flux of the life in which we live and the wave in which we go about our daily lives. So that's what makes it interesting. I think that's what makes it fun. Uncertainty is definitely an opportunity to be innovative, so to speak, and not do things the same way we've always done it, especially if you're open to other perspectives. And I think that's also the beauty of coaching, and being open to other opportunities. And that's where, well, that's why I love working with you, because you'll say something and I'll be like, I had not thought of it that way. That's a beautiful thing.
And back at you, because what I enjoy about our working together is that we really create from each other. Yeah. Today you threw out one thing and I threw something back out, and as we continue to create, now we're here and we went live today. We hope to be on our podcast platform, which you can follow us over there at K to Z Better Professional Development on Podbean, where we will upload this if you want to listen to it again on a podcast streaming device like Apple. Ziz, as we wrap up today, no fluff, right to what's important. Wrap us up.
So, inspiration is super, super important. I'll just leave with, I'll leave you with another quote. People are attracted to positivity. The positive leader shines and attracts others to them. Develop an unwavering positive attitude, and that's Sandy Gallagher. So it leads right into what you said about, if you're going to beat someone over the head all the time, they're going to run away. They don't want to see you. Like, don't tell me that stuff. I know what I'm not doing wrong. But if you want to inspire me and help me get better at what it is, what I'm going to do, acknowledge me, inspire me, be positive, and then layer in how to help me overcome some of the deficits that I may have and some of the things that I'm doing. So thanks for playing on Friday. I look forward to doing this more often. This is our first one, hopefully of many. And, we'll talk about all things 4-3-40 on Friday, just along that attitude of, it's a metric that's used in football to measure one's speed. And a 4.3 would put you in the top 1%. So imagine that. The reason why I like that 4-3-40 is, imagine being in the top 1% of your job, your career, your professional, whatever it is that you do. So in other words, just always strive to be a little better each and every day.
Mm.
Be you.
I like that 1% striving, because I think about, I always wanted to be a 1%er. Usually I get there by having my phone be on 1%. But when I think of striving for that 1%, for me, that's the trusting of yourself and knowing yourself and how you make decisions, never doubting those decisions. Becoming a leader is synonymous with becoming yourself. Warren Bennett said it beautifully. And the more you become you, the parts of you that you don't want to explore and the parts of you that you love and embrace, the more that you live in that 1% performance, where you're able to bring the power of the shadow side of you into your work in a really powerful way. Thank you, Ziz. This was super fun. Just to highlight what's coming up, Wit and Wisdom on Wednesdays will also be going live. We'll either be on our podcast platform or Facebook. We'll let you know. And Ziz will be joining us as well. I will be sharing some of my wisdom and wit with him, and he will be creating from it. So I look forward to seeing whatever it is that Ziz brings to Wit and Wisdom. It is a teaser. If you know anything about human design, if you're curious about human design, if you just want to know what wisdom Ziz has to say, join us to learn a little bit more about it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your Friday.